Did Garrett Adelstein get cheated at the Hustler? Everyone's talking about it. I've seen a ton of things on Twitter. My Twitter feed is almost all poker related. Watched a few of the YouTube videos. There are 4 things that absolutely nobody is talking about that are very, very important. The first, and most important by far, is that the 4 and the 3 should not be confused for each other. She thought she had Jack 3 in her hand, was one of her claims, and she actually had Jack 4. That makes no sense. I'll show you why. Just because the 4 and the 3 are close to each other on the number line doesn't mean you should be confusing the two. It doesn't mean that makes any sense. You need to consider the fonts. So let's look at the 4. This deck of cards, the font they use at the Hustler, the 4 has only straight lines. It has that diagonal. It has one horizontal line. It has one vertical line. The 3 doesn't come anywhere close to that. The 3 only has curves. It does not have any straight lines. It looks exactly like the 8 cut in half vertically. Now, if you said you confused the 4 with the ace, that would make a little sense. They both only have straight lines. They both have that long diagonal from top right to bottom left. I can see that happening. I remember in a home game years ago, we were using a deck where the top of the 3 was a line straight across horizontally, and a guy confused the 3 with the 7 because the 7 also had, the horizontal line straight across. He didn't look at the full corner of the cards, just kind of the top bit, and he confused the 3 and the 7. If you confuse the 4 and the ace in this deck at the Hustler, that would make some sense. But to confuse the 4 and the 3 makes absolutely no sense. One only has straight lines, one only has curved lines. And for everyone out there who is absolutely obsessed with blockers, which I'm not, the suit is the same. If you think it's okay for her to say, oh, I thought I had Jack 3, what suit does she think the 3 is? Because the 3 of hearts is on board. She can't have the 3 of hearts in her hand. You think that her saying, oh, I had Jack 3 makes sense, even though the 3 and the 4 don't look alike? What suit? Because it's clearly a heart in her hand. The heart is a different color than the spade. The heart in her hand is a different color than the club. And the heart has curves, which the diamond does not. The heart is being confused for what suit exactly. She cannot have the 3 of hearts in her hand because the 3 of hearts is on board. The board is blocking it from being in her hand. That's the most important blocker information we should be discussing. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense to say, oh, I thought the 4 and the 3, I confused the 2. Just because they're in sequence on the number line doesn't mean you should be confusing them. The 3 and the 8 look similar. The 4 and the ace look similar. Just because you count 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't mean you should be confusing numbers that are next to each other on the number line. I've played with people with bad eyesight. They're sitting on the ends of the table, far away from the board, and they say they're not even trying to look at the number. They're just trying to count, how many clubs are on the card. And that makes sense to confuse 2 numbers that are in sequence. It makes sense for those guys to confuse a 7 with an 8 with a 9 with a 10, because they're trying to count the suits and they get confused. It doesn't make sense if you're looking at the actual font, the actual number, to confuse 2 numbers just because they're next to each other on the number line. The 3 other things no one is mentioning quickly. 1, there are ways to prove things besides a confession. The people saying, don't make these accusations without proof, what they really mean is, we don't have a confession. There are events, there are details of events, conclusions can be drawn. There are definitely ways to prove things without a confession. So just because there's been no confession from anybody doesn't mean there's absolutely no evidence and no proof. Another thing, the defense to say if she were cheating, this was a terrible spot to do it, so she wasn't. That makes no sense. There are people who are good at things, people who are bad at things. There are some people who are very good at basketball, some people who are bad. Some people who are very good at playing the trumpet, some people who are bad. There are people who are good at cheating. There are people who are bad at cheating. People who are good at cheating, you don't see them cheating because they're good at it and they get away with it. Mike Postle was not good at cheating. He got caught. There are people cheating at things who are very good at it that you never know about. So to say, oh, this would make no sense if you decided to cheat, to do it in this spot, she can be bad at cheating. And last thing that's just very interesting personally, was Garrett being results oriented? I would love to know if he won half the pot, what his reaction is. You know, if he was like made whole and ended the hand with the money that he started the hand with. Also, what if he won both runouts? Would he have done anything? Would he have done the exact same thing? I think this only happened because he lost both. I would love to know his reaction if he won half the pot or if he won the whole pot. Can't believe no one's talking about that, but also can't believe no one's mentioning these four things. Mostly the first one, that the 4 and the 3 don't look alike, that the heart was the 3 on board and the heart was the 4 in her hand, so that makes no sense. And not saying she did cheat or she did not, just saying things that are true, saying some arguments are incredibly stupid, other arguments that are not being made hold a lot more water. So just letting you know some facts after a little bit of investigating I did, and don't know why no one's mentioning these things in the least.